Hello, we are going to look at doing some half stitch today, and the half stitch is very straightforward, and you can see I've used different coloured threads here, and I'm going to do a pattern that is a half stitch, pin, half stitch. So the half stitch is 1 to the right, 2 to the left, and that is all that the half stitch is. Now I'm going to do half stitch and pin, so that's my half stitch, and I'm going to pin underneath the middle of that to the next available pinhole here. Now whatever I do above the pin up here, I need to do below the pin as well, so I'm going to be doing a half stitch again below the pin. So that's this number 2 bobbin to the right and those 2 to the left, and then pull it up. You can see that I'm working diagonally down this line. I'm coming to the purple pair now, and I'm going to go number 2 bobbin over number 3 bobbin, and then the 2 purple ones to the left, half stitch done. I'm now going to pin between them to there, and whatever I do above the pin, I need to do below the pin. So I'm going to go 2nd bobbin over the purple and those 2 to the left, and then I'm going to pull up the bobbins to tighten up, and you can see that the pattern is beginning to develop here. Pink's met pink here. We're going to go 1 to the right, 2 to the left, and pin. And we're going to do the same underneath the pin, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, and tighten it. And we're going to do the complete diagonal here. 1 to the right, 2 to the left, and pin. One to the right, 2 to the left, that's the half stitch, and we're pulling it up onto the yellow ones. 1 to the right, 2 to the left, pin between, one to the right, 2 to the left, and pull it up. Then you can see that we've got our first diagonal done. I'm going to come back now and start the next diagonal. So I'm bringing all these bobbins to the right, and the next bobbin I have to use here, you'll see, is this green one here, and it's going to be working into this space here using the 2 lines from there. So this was going to be the red one meeting the green one. So there's the red and the green, move the others out of the way, and we've got 1 to the right, 2 to the left. That's half of the stitch, that's a half stitch. Going to pin between it, and again 1 to the right, 2 to the left, and pull it up. Now we're going to continue working along this diagonal here, and you'll see how the pattern develops. 1 to the right, 2 to the left, and pin. One to the right, 2 to the left, and pull it up. Next pair in. 1 to the right, 2 to the left, and pin. One to the right, 2 to the left, and pull it up. Right, I'll carry on and I'll come back in a bit when I've done some more. So there we are, it's the half stitch and pin, half stitch and pull it up. I'll just finish this row, half stitch and pin, half stitch and pull it up. Now you can see that I've worked this pattern all the way down to a line across here. You can see where the colours go fairly easily and maybe understand how this develops. This is a basic ground in lace that you can add extra parts into, which we'll come on to another day. But for the moment I'm now going to change what I'm doing so you can see the difference in the pattern slightly. We've been using half stitch and pin, half stitch. Now I'm going to do a half stitch, pin, half stitch and twist. You can see that by doing the half stitch and pin followed by the half stitch and twist, which is half stitch and then twist both of them, what you're doing is you're getting a very subtle difference, and the difference you're getting is that this area that is the half stitch, pin, half stitch and a twist, this area is a much clearer square with sharper edges than the half stitch, pin, half stitch. So it makes it a slightly more geometric, sharper pattern. It's quite subtle, and we'll move on to some others in a minute that make it look even more different if you use hole stitch. Right, now we're moving on to the hole stitch, pin, hole stitch. Now the hole stitch is what you found out as cloth stitch. It's sometimes called cloth stitch, it's sometimes called hole stitch. But to remind you, it is 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. And on this occasion we're going to pin between, split, and then 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, our cloth stitch, our hole stitch. And we're going to continue working with the hole stitch, pin, hole stitch down this diagonal. So we've got 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, and pin it. Pull it up, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, and tighten. Moving on along that diagonal, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, and pin it. One to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, and tighten. And you'll begin to see a very different shape appearing from what we've been seeing up here. When I finish this, I'll take the pins out so you can get a clearer look. The hole stitch or cloth stitch, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. We're going to pin that to the next available hole, pull it up, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, and tighten. I think you've got a bit of shadow on that. Is that better? Okay, and the purple ones now, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, and pin. I'll try and get rid of these shadows. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, and carrying on, 1 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, and a pin. One to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, and tighten. Using the red pair now. 1 to the right, 2 to the left, one to the right, and pin, one to the right, two to the left, one to the right, and pin. You can start to see that where the threads are travelling slightly differently through the pattern now. One to the right, two to the left, one to the right, and pin. Now I'm not carrying on down this diagonal at the moment to the edge because I want to stop along this line and look at a different stitch possibly. Okay, I'll just finish this bit off and I'll be back. This next section I'm using hole stitch, twist, pin, hole stitch, twist. So the hole stitch or the cloth stitch, one to the right, two to the left, one to the right, then a twist of both of those, and then pin it, pull it, and again one to the right, two to the left, one to the right, and a full twist for each of those, and tighten it up. So that's hole stitch, twist, pin, hole stitch, twist, hole stitch, twist, pin, hole stitch, twist, hole stitch, twist. Remember the twist always goes from right to left, pin, hole stitch, twist, and tighten. I'll come back to you when I've done some more.